Well, hello, everybody. My name is Rob Furman. I am a author, presenter, and currently also an elementary school principal. So I'm hoping I can get through this presentation without too much craziness. Today, we're going to be talking about AR, VR, AI, and most importantly, the future of education. That's one of my passions. One of my books is written on being future ready as a school system. I have a lot of deep-seated opinions about the need for some pretty important changes in our educational system, and some of this presentation sort of goes along with what we see as the future of education. I'm a member of the World Future Society, so we have a lot of opportunities to discuss and sort of predict or foresight into what we think is going to be happening in the future of education. So let's get started. So this is you, and this was me, and I'm 47 years old now, and I absolutely remember being in a school just like this. Every teacher's in front, putting the old definitions and things up front, and you're answering your questions, and nice tidy rows. But have we ever stopped to think about how we even got to that point? Where did this all begin, and how did we turn into what we know as our public education system? It started in 1892 with the Committee of 10, and these are the 10 individuals who really sat down together to decide upon what are we going to look like in terms of an educational system. I feel sorry for the one guy. All I could get was a gravestone, but he's definitely there in spirit. At that point, they only had 3 organizations at the time from which they could draw these ideas from: the jail, the factory, and the church. And those 3 systems or organizations at the time was what they had used to come up with this idea, the idea of public education. So if you think about it, the jail, that was element number 1. And we still use a lot of these elements to this day. We got our procedures from the jail system. How are kids going to act in the hall? And it still looks like that today. We have compliance, the idea of I will talk, you will listen, you will follow rules, you will stay in your seat. All of those type of things definitely came from the system of the jail. And once again, things really haven't changed much today. We even get yard time. Can anybody guess what we think yard time was? You guessed it, it's recess. So we definitely have elemented some things from the jail system. Don't forget about our yearbook, right? The mugshot. When you think about the factory, that's probably the easiest one that people are used to thinking of, because everything was standardized. Everything had to come out the same at the other end. Everything had to be rank and file, block and order, to the point where when you came in as something unique and different, you had to come out the other end identical. And that's where we get our standardized testing, and we get our idea of everything being the same. And again, it's hard to think about things in the future like personalized education whenever you're still stuck with standardized testing. Standard and personalized will never work together, will it? We had the assembly line mentality, where everybody's doing the same thing at the same time, working on the same product, doing their part in that little product. Again, things really haven't changed much. Then we get our church, and that's where we get our instruction from, our instructional practices. If you think about the church, that's very much where we get the idea of the lecture. That's where we get the idea of the lecture. And the lecture is when the person standing up front, they have the information, they have the knowledge, they're the keeper of the information, and they give it to you, and you are to sit there and listen and learn it. They're only going to give you as much as they feel you can handle, and they control it. And that's very much what we think of in terms of the lecture series, the idea of this instructional practice of being, I will talk and you will listen and you will learn. And again, things really haven't changed much. So we think about our past and what happens in our future. It's time that we start looking at the necessary changes that technology has brought about. Because if you think about the idea of an educational revolution, and I'm not talking about reform, we're beyond reform. Now we need an overhaul, a revolution, a major change in practice. I don't know of any other organization that still does it the exact same way they did it in 1892. And yet, just looking at those past slides, we're still doing it the same way we did it in 1892. And things need to move. Things need to change. So what do all these things have in common? Let's look at all these things. We have a transistor radio there. We have a DVD player, a TV, a laptop, a projector. All of those things in one point in time was magical technology. It was something that everybody wanted. They probably cost a lot of money each. And every classroom should have one. Now we're to the point where most of this, if not all of it, is becoming just common practice. Everybody has a radio now, to the point now where people don't even really need radios anymore. Pretty much everybody had a TV of some sort in their room. At one point, everybody had DVD players in their room. Everybody had a projector in their room. Smart boards are pretty common now, to the point now where a lot of schools are trying to become standard with the one-on-one devices or the laptops. So when we think about this going from expensive, cool tech down to something that's common practice, what do we think the next part's going to be? My opinion, and the opinion that I've had of it with other educational futurists, is that we think AR, VR, and the AI movement, that's going to be our next big option in classrooms, to the point where we're hoping that it becomes like the next smart board or like the next one-on-one device, where it's an expectation. It's no longer a novelty or something that's only the most richest of districts can have because they're just too expensive and all those type of things. We're thinking AR, VR, AI is going to become the next, let's say, chalkboard, where it's an expectation that every school would have them because it's such an integral part of education. When I do these talks, I get a gamut of people that are really into this stuff and understand it all blankly, and some that just really don't know what these letters mean. So let's just real briefly go over that for those of you that aren't really sure the differences. Virtual reality, or VR, is where you're getting immersed into a digital environment, a completely other world. It's no longer the reality that you're in at the moment. You're in a different reality, which in itself is pretty interesting because you can always be two places at once, which is kind of cool. Things like Second Life, Minecraft, those are areas where you're fully immersed into that other world, that other reality. I think there's a lot of really cool potential for this, and a lot of people are doing this now with classroom field trips. They're taking these virtual field trips where you can go to these other locations and see these other options and other things without having to spend the price of actually getting there. We'll talk more about these later down the road, but it's a really cool option for some of these schools that are getting into the AR and VR worlds. Have you ever used any of these virtual realities? We've got Minecraft, Second Life, HTC Vive, Google Cardboard, Oculus. There's a lot of different options out there now. If you've had any experience with these, this would be a good opportunity to sort of share out with other people within your group to sort of start the conversation of, yes, I've done this. Maybe I've just done it as something for play and fun, or yes, I've looked at this as a possibility as an educational experience. So artificial intelligence, this is becoming something that's just all over the place, to the point where we don't even realize that it's there. But some of the more obvious ones nowadays is like the Alexa, Echo, the Google Home. Apple has one now with Siri, All of those are artificial intelligence. And this is an interesting portion of the whole foresight into education, because I've heard people say, are these going to be something that could potentially replace teachers? No, I'll answer that straight out. No, I've talked to several experts, and they said artificial intelligence is great to answer the who, what, when, where type of thing, but the how and why is just not there yet. It's probably not going to be there yet for several years. But it's really good with the facts and figures. And I think those of us that have been in education for a while has been saying for quite some time that you really need to stop teaching the facts and figures, because you're colossally wasting your time. When I can ask the question out in the air and have Siri or Alexa answer it for me, I could probably use my time in the classroom better than trying to memorize facts and figures. But with that being said, there is going to be a place with this artificial intelligence in the grand scheme of things. And again, we'll sort of share that at the end of this presentation on how this could all merge together and look like something that would be pretty exciting in the classroom. And then we have augmented reality, which is probably the most prevalent right now, as well as the most exciting. Definitely a place that I find a lot of interest and a lot of excitement. Augmented reality is just what it says. It's not virtual. It's not a different reality. It's still your reality, but you're doing something to augment it. You're doing something that's going to take your reality and put something in there in a virtual sense. It overlays these virtual objects or items or things like that that's going to take your current reality and add to it in a virtual fashion. And the possibilities here are just endless. So have any of you ever used an augmented reality system in any of your classrooms? We're really, in my building, we're trying to push that fairly heavily. Right now, we're still fighting with the one-on-one devices and seeing if all that can work. But we're getting to the point now where I'm in my classrooms with my teachers. I'm definitely seeing some progress with using this. And again, it's an exciting time. It's an amazing time because the kids are just awestruck by it. It's just such an opportunity for us as educators to grasp onto this technology and run with it, that it's just an exciting time to be in education. I always think about talking about the Wild West. And I always think it's interesting when you think about the Wild West and how these people completely unknown to them jump in these covered wagons and just travel out into absolutely the unknown. Nobody knows what's out there. And when we look back in hindsight, we think about, oh boy, they really screwed that up, or man, they came up with this and it was genius. But how they even come up with these wonderful ideas, all these different things. And it's interesting because as teachers, I feel like we're sort of in the Wild West of education right now, because we're sort of definitely traveling into that unknown. And when they look at us, they write about us in history books. I'm sure they're gonna look back and go, oh, that was dumb. But then there's gonna be some things they're gonna be like, wow, they came up with this idea. That's wonderful. And it's sort of an exciting time to be in education. I can't wait to someday be able to see what they write about us in history books and how we tackled these unknown technologies and unknown ideas, and what we got right and what we may have missed along the way. But it's an exciting time. So here are some concepts I just want to share with you about the classroom and some ideas just to sort of get you started on this adventure through augmented reality and virtual reality. So one of these options is called co-spaces. In co-spaces, you can actually create AR and VR options right within your classroom. It has a little bit of a learning curve. It's not too terrible, but it definitely has a little bit of a curve. But to get the kids to create in this environment is just spectacular. I saw a couple really cool examples of this where they had a quiz set up, and the kids had to go into, the teacher created the VR space. The kids had to go in through the VR, and it was almost like a obstacle course, and every stop on the obstacle course was a different question they had to answer, and then they got it right, they got to go on through the obstacle course, and it was pretty neat. And then the next phase of that lesson is they had the kids then create their own obstacle course style of VR quiz. And boy, they ask harder questions than the teachers do sometimes. And it's exciting because then the kids can go through each other's obstacle courses on the video and be able to see those type of things. And it's pretty exciting. It's pretty cool stuff. Unity. Unity is a wonderful platform for the VR world. It definitely has more of a learning curve than CoSpaces, but you can do a lot more with it. Probably late middle to early high school would be more of the right age group for this type of system. But it's a wonderful system, but definitely has a little bit of a learning curve. Again, you could do all sorts of wonderful virtual experiences through that. Definitely worth checking out if you have a little more knowledge of some of this computer-based programming, things like that. Tour Builder. Tour Builder is a lot of fun. It's sort of a way to create your own virtual field trip. The neat thing about Tour Builder is it uses the Google Earth system. So you get on Google Earth, you put these little tags around the earth, and every place that you put a tag, you could put some video, you could put some images, you could put some discussion points, you could put little essays and things like that. The way I saw this being used is a teacher was doing a lesson on the Civil War, and they had different tags from the different battles, so you could see where the soldiers were traveling and how far they had to travel and all these kind of different things. Another one I saw was it was a story, Mark Twain, I believe it was, going down the Mississippi River, and they were putting all the points all the way down so they could visually see where everything was going. Really neat way to bring in some geography into your conversations and to see the distances that they had to travel and things like that. But it's a really neat way to sort of get that AR, VR sort of experience into your classrooms. Very user-friendly, not hard to use at all. I use that with my elementary. Zapper's pretty cool. And Zapper just came out with this new thing also called a Zap Box, which is pretty cool. And it has all kinds of options inside where you can start creating even larger augmented reality experiences. You get these zone tags, and you can create these little virtual hand things. You can see where it has a place where you can create your augmented reality piece. So they're doing some great stuff with augmented reality. It was really neat. I did a thing on this where basically it's like an augmented reality QR code. You could see one here actually. And if you actually have the Zapper app, you can zap that and you'll get some information from that as well, just to see how it works. But I took these Zapper codes and I put them all around my building for open house. And I told the parents before they came in to get the Zapper app. And as they were walking through, they would click on it and they would come up with an augmented version of myself. And I would talk through wherever they were in the building. It was really neat. The kids loved it. The parents thought it was really cool. You could do so many cool things with the kids in terms of scavenger hunts or having them do some different location-based projects, which is pretty cool. Definitely worth checking out. I would also check out the Zapper box where you can really start creating your own 3D pieces, items, artifacts right there, and then you can actually manipulate them with the virtual wands that are in there as well. Very cool stuff. That's the Zapper app as well as the Zap box, which is pretty cool. Google Translate. Now, people don't really think of this as something that's augmented reality, but they're moving in that direction, which is pretty neat. They're getting to the point where you can take a picture of something that's in a foreign language, and then it'll show up in the correct language in that reality, which is a version of the augmented reality. You're changing the reality of what they're saying or what you're reading on a sign. It's also getting to the point where some of these are actually overlaying the translation of what the person is saying, like right under them, or like in a thought bubble type of thing, where the device is taking the foreign language, translating it, and then putting it as closed caption right beneath them. wonderful opportunities, obviously, for schools that have multiple families with language differences than us within English and things like that. I just actually had a conversation with somebody from Uzbekistan using a conversation app like this, and it works. It works really well, and she was so appreciative because I took the time to have that and be able to communicate on their level. And obviously, it helps because it's one of those things that you want to get through those barriers so that we can communicate and get to the point of being able to help the child. So a wonderful app. And there's many out there. Google isn't the only one. I just happen to use this one, but there's a lot of different translation apps out there that also use the AR. And then this one is from Cleaver Books, which is really pretty cool. You actually can take this map, and when you use your device and look through this, you see all sorts of different options popping out of here. You got animals. It'll show you all sorts of different details of what's going on the map. Really brings geography to life. It's cool in the respect that a lot of times looking at these flat 2D things anymore for kids, it just doesn't do it for them anymore. Remember, when they go home, they're using all of this stuff for entertainment purposes and for play purposes. And that's probably one of my biggest concerns when it comes to dealing with the 21st century education is if we're still doing things like 1892, kids are done. Like they've shut off. They have no interest to hear what we have to say because they're going home and they're being immersed in these ridiculous experiences playing games and stuff. So we really have to keep up. And things like this where they get to see the animals pop up in 3D and get to see where they're going and how their migration works and all sorts of just really cool stuff. It makes a big difference keeping them interested and sort of using their technology to help them learn about these things. So Qlon is another really cool augmented reality experience. You can see that's an augmented reality elephant that they put right there. What you do is you print out one of these sheets. You can see it in the bottom right corner there with the dots and stuff. And then you lay an object on there, a physical object on there. And then when you take a picture, it turns that into an augmented reality artifact that you can use for other options. If I'm not mistaken, I think Qlon just got started working with Merge and maybe CoSpaces as well. So you could create these artifacts. And obviously creating these artifacts is very creative. You get a lot of problem solving concepts going on. And then there's also, again, a thing at the end here that I think we could wrap all of these ideas up with that I think is pretty exciting. But Qlon is another wonderful tool for creating 3D artifacts. Then we have the Merge Cube, which is probably one of my favorites. It's a really cool option. I have a Merge Cube right here. I can show you. It's just a foam box, which was kind of cool because originally Walmart, one of our schools, or one of our convenience stores had these, and they thought they were silly. Like, who wanted to buy a foam box? They started selling them for $1 a piece, and teachers went crazy and would just rip the shelves apart and bought all of them because they had no idea what it was. This little box can turn into the solar system, like you see that boy holding right there. It could turn into any augmented reality artifact that the Merge Cube has created through their apps, many of them free. And with Qlon, the one I just showed you a moment ago, you could create your own artifact and then put it right here on the Merge Cube. So the possibilities on that is just endless. So let's hear what some of the other experts have to say when it comes to dealing with AR and VR. These are all friends of mine through different areas. Jamie was talking about this importance of AR and VR, that they need to experience these most important connections with their content. And we know that to be true, but it's the idea of no longer telling them, but actually showing them. Again, getting away from this lecture concept that we've been doing since the Committee of 10 created this idea. So we need to be able to start showing them, again, getting them involved in their technology that they're using at home for their entertainment. and we know the importance of engagement, and we know the importance of them being the creator of things. When you look at the digital age skills that ISTE puts out, we understand the importance of creativity and problem solving and doing, which is just so important. Dr. Maureen Brown Yoder's wonderful educator through Lesley University in Massachusetts. And she talks about these triggers, the idea of two-dimensional, the black and white printouts, which we were showing you. There's three-dimensional triggers. There's multi-use AR platforms like MergeCube, and between the Clever Books and the Qlon and the MergeCube, you could see all sorts of these different triggers that are out there, and that's sort of something you need to get your brain around, because you need to sort of pick how you're going to create these options. And here's some ideas that she had as well, with talking about electronic field trips, simulations, which are very exciting, and then instruction with AR is a lot more participatory. So, ultimately that's our goal, is to have them doing, as opposed to just sitting and listening, or trying to, through osmosis, I guess, suck it into your brain, but getting them to do things and manipulate the ideas through these different augmented reality experiences is where we're really aiming. And then Michael, the ed tech notion, the recommendations, pedagogy before technology. We definitely have to make sure that anything that we're doing with tech is not necessarily for the cool tool experience, is what I like to call it. These things are cool and they are a lot of fun, but we always have to remember that everything that we're doing has to be with an instructional point at the end. There's some apps out there that make quizzes, fun quizzes. Yeah, they're fun, they can be entertaining, but wouldn't it be better if we changed it up a little bit and had the kids creating the quizzes, creating the questions, changing it over to make it an instructional experience for them, rather than just, hey, this is a cool tool, let's play with it. And there's a place for that as well, but most importantly, we want to make sure that we have a focus on the who, what, when, where, and why, so that we know why the kids are doing this and what they're going to learn from using these experiences. Here are some ideas that they had as well. The Merge, CoSpaces, we went through those. The Google Tour is a lot of fun. So let's stop a moment here and just think about all of these things we just went through, and relatively quickly, in about a half hour's worth of time. But let's think about all those different options we just went through. The virtual reality, the augmented reality, holding artifacts, artificial intelligence, where we can get the facts, figures, and dates just sent to us just with a question in the air. So what would that look like if we took all of those and blended them into a classroom of the future? What I could see, and what I've discussed with other colleagues, is taking all three of those and turning it into a unit where, let's take an example. Let's do the atom. We'll talk about the atom in science. Wouldn't it be interesting if everybody put on those virtual goggles that you see right there, and with the teacher as well, and you're all on floating around this atom, and the teacher's in there with you discussing the different pieces of the atom and how these things interact and work. And let's say there's a factor figure there and one of the kids asks a question. The teacher doesn't stop to answer it, because there's an artificial intelligence piece built into this, and that artificial intelligence piece takes that question and answers it. So boom, that question is answered, and then the teacher moves along. Then they come back into the classroom and they pull up, let's say, a MergeCube or a map like Clever of an atom, and all of a sudden it comes up and it's a 3D image that they're holding in their hand, and they can manipulate it, and then the lesson continues on. Maybe we're doing a talk on ancient Rome in social studies, and all the kids put on their VR goggles, and now they're virtually walking through the Roman Empire, and they could see exactly what it would look like when they were walking, if they were walking so many years ago. And again, the AI is there pointing out the facts and the statistics and those type of things that they're seeing. but the teacher's there as well to answer the why questions and the how questions and the type of things that only humans are working on, like empathy and passion and those type of things, to discuss, how would the people have felt during the Roman Empire. And then they take it off. They take off their VR goggles and they pick up their augmented reality device, and maybe they're holding a vase from that time and actually looking at that archaeological find in their hands as they're studying it and looking at that experience. How about we do math, where we put on our VR goggles and we all go to an amusement park, and part of that's going to be we're going to create a roller coaster using math and physics. And you're in that VR system and you're looking at it, and you could even get on the roller coaster and see if it works. Pretty interesting stuff. Science, you can get into a virtual chemical lab where you're sitting in there and with your augmented experiences holding different chemicals. And as they merge, as you have the two chemicals maybe in both hands and you put them together, it's going to do whatever reaction was actually supposed to happen in the real world. But obviously it's a whole lot safer and a whole lot cheaper than trying to buy actual chemicals. So you could see how the possibilities are just endless with these options. And when it comes to our children, this is no longer really the cool tool. This is the expectation. This is what they expect you to be doing in your classrooms, because this is what they're doing for their entertainment at home. We want them to be as excited to come to school and learn as they are playing these video games. I mean, we know video games can be entertaining. It's edutainment, right? They can even learn from those experiences. Let's bring that stuff into the classroom. Let's give the opportunities for these kids to be able to play with these things and learn at the same time in an exciting manner. If we don't, we're going to lose them, and that's the part that really concerns me. So that's my presentation, and I certainly hope everyone enjoyed that. If you need to get in contact with me for anything, it's my email's real simple, rob@robfurman.com. I'm also on Twitter at drfurman, at Dr. Furman. I like to do a lot of curating of articles and writing some things as well, so that would probably be one of the best places to find me. And please reach out if you need me for anything at any time. I'm always here to help and assist, and we can learn from each other. So I would also like to thank Clever Books and for hosting this, and thank you very much for your time.